Welcome back to Munchausen's Proxy, where we wound up seeing a news item that shocked even our jaded mind. As most who pay attention to such things know, Warner Brothers and DC released The Flash into theaters last weekend. It is one of the final 3 movies DC have been sitting on in the now defunct Snyderverse version of the DCEU. When Warner Brothers was bought by Discovery, David Zaslav, the Discovery boss, axed most of the incompetent idiots running DC and put James Gunn in charge of coming up with a more viable DC film universe. What he came up with was less than exciting, but it also meant any films from the old regime that were too far into production or too expensive had to be released. This included Shazam 2, The Flash, Blue Beetle, and Aquaman. Shazam bombed pretty hard, making only $133.5 million at the box office on a budget of $125 million. This means Shazam lost over $100 million for Warner Brothers and DC. The Flash, however, is an even more monumental disaster for the studio because of its reported budget was somewhere north of $200 million. With figures being quite murky due to significant reshoots. And since Ezra Miller, the star, was not trusted to do media for the movie, see my video on The Flash's production hell for details on that, Warner Brothers and DC decided to use a massive media market campaign to advertise the movie that some estimates believe came close to doubling the cost of the film before it even hit theaters. This means The Flash needs to make somewhere in the neighborhood of $600 million just to break even. However, The Flash's opening weekend at the box office underperformed even the lowered estimates for the film, only taking in $55 million domestically and a horrendous $130 million globally. Early projections had The Flash on pace to see a 66% drop-off in its second weekend, which is not too bad if you compare it to the 65% plus drop-offs that Marvel movies like Doctor Strange 2 and Thor 4 saw. Unfortunately for DC, those movies opened to massive first weekends, with $187.4 million and $144.1 million respectively. And both of those films underperformed Marvel's expectations, even though both films made them $282 million and a slight profit respectively. The Flash will not be so lucky. With a break-even point in the neighborhood of $600 million and an opening weekend of only $130 million globally, the legacy DC flick will struggle to get anywhere near break-even. Over the next few weeks, the movie will need to bring in over $250 million to pay off its budget and marketing costs. The anemic opening all but guarantees that will not be happening. And the huge drop-off in the second weekend means it's almost guaranteed to be a bloodbath at DC. The Flash was not the only movie given its studio bosses heartburn, however. Also opening this past weekend was Pixar's Elemental. It opened to only $29.6 million, the weakest Pixar opening when adjusting for inflation in the history of the studio. With a $200 million budget and a break-even point somewhere north of $500 million, Elemental's opening and desolate international earnings mean it will likely lose significantly for Pixar and Disney, marking the 6th such Pixar loss after the COVID-slammed Onward, Soul, Luca, and Turning Red, and the costly flop Lightyear. Paramount joins Disney and Warner Brothers in box office lamentations for big-budget bombs the last couple of weeks. Transformers: Rise of the Beasts opened to mixed reviews and a rather paltry $62 million domestically. It, too, saw a sizable second-week drop-off at 66%, and to date of recording has only made $288 million globally on a budget of $200 million, and a break-even point set north of $500 million. At its current pace, it is likely to either fall just short or just make the break-even point, meaning another disappointment for the Transformers franchise that has been hit or miss with the last few movies. Needless to say, but these might be some of the last big-budget movies we see out of Hollywood for a while, with both the writers and the actors on strike, and the strike expected to last well into the fall at the very least. This means any movies that were in production when the strike started are going to be released, but any new projects will have to wait until the actors and the writers get a new contract with the studios. Meaning theater fare coming the beginning of the next year is going to be slim to none. That these tentpole movies are bombing this hard is going to hit the studios already in bad shape. In part, it is their own fault because they seem to have forgotten how to make anything but ridiculously budgeted movies and allow their producers and directors to run over budget with zero consequences. We will see what the other legacy DC films do, but Blue Beetle is an obscure character few non-DC geeks know, with a terrible opening to its marketing campaign. Aquaman 2 is also not looking good, both because of the Amber Heard effect and because rumors out of DC and Warner Brothers had Aquaman 2 and Black Adam testing worse than both the trashed Batwoman movie and the currently residing in a crater The Flash. However, given that you had DC and Warner Brothers executives trying to pass off The Flash as the second coming of the comic book movie, take that with a mountain of salt. Perhaps a shirtless Jason Momoa can salvage the prospects of the DC sequel. After all, it certainly was what drove the first film over $1 billion and made it the most profitable DCEU movie yet, because it certainly was not the writing. That is all I have for this video. If you like what you heard, please subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to be notified of new videos. Also, please hit the like button, share the video, and comment down below to help out the channel. It is much appreciated. The Gotham Knights Episode 12 spoiler review is incoming, and after that I will be working to get my follow-up Marvel video together. Until then, tschüss.